We are now today, brand new, just into us, getting a closer look at the scale of the destruction from the attack on Venezuela, the extraction of Maduro. You heard Julie Sirkin and others lay out what exactly happened. 150 military aircraft from the U.S. coming in, landing. There was obviously fire exchange. This was the scene you're looking at right here in one of the places targeted. You can see some damage now at what appeared to be a residential complex. Just really rubble here. I want to bring you the view on the ground inside Venezuela with journalist Vanessa Herrero. She's based in the capital of Caracas. Anna watched the attack happen in real time. Anna, thank you very much for being back with us again. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can hear you perfectly. Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, well, you and I spoke yesterday, and you described this feeling of uncertainty among many Venezuelans that you were talking with. Long lines at supermarkets, long lines at pharmacies as people were sort of scrambling in the hours after the attack. Here we are now, day 2, effectively. Give us a sense of what you're seeing on the ground. If you still have us, Anna.
I don't know if you. I think I lost you, but I don't know if you're listening.
You're good.
Hearing me. Are you hearing me? Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So I was telling you that what we're experiencing today, it's a little bit of what we saw yesterday, but calmer. So less people on the streets, but less lines, moving faster. People wondering still how much they should get. More supermarkets and pharmacies opening to welcome the people who want to stock whatever they need for the hours and the days to come. And it's interesting because while we're seeing that footage, I actually visited one place that was also affected by one of the bombing, but the several bombings here in Caracas. And I was talking to the owners, I was talking to the neighbors, and they were telling me, why would the United States attack a residential area or somewhere near a residential area if they're not military targets? Although this place that I'm talking about is near a communication tower that serves for the military. So they were wondering, and even one of them said, we want to ask the United States to help us rebuild our house because this is not our fault and we somehow got affected. So right now, today, we're seeing more people trying to understand what happened and really getting all that in.
What about the leadership in Venezuela right now? Because the Venezuelan Vice President, Delcy Rodriguez, we've talked about her quite a bit here. She was obviously at Maduro's side for quite a while. She's now serving as interim president. She has struck, at least publicly, a defiant tone, insisting multiple times that there is only one president of Venezuela, and it is Nicolás Maduro. What is your sense of who the Venezuelan people that you're talking with want to see take power? We know that President Trump has largely dismissed the idea of the opposition leader, Maria Corina Machado, taking over. Give me a sense of what you're hearing on that front.
Well, believe it or not, people are not talking about that. I mean, the conversation here on the ground is not revolving around who is next in line. If Delcy Rodriguez is going to, for example, which would be a very good question to ask, if she's going to follow the Maduro's line, if she's going to be as harsh as he was repressing protests, for example, if they erupt. That is not a key element right now among the people I've talked to. They're not even talking about Maria Corina Machado anymore. People in lines are talking about how much water do we need if another strike comes. What should I do? Should I get refuge? Should I seek shelter? Should I get my family? Should I travel? And then this intensifies after defense minister just ordered basically Venezuela to get back to normal immediately. And people wonder, how are we going to get back to normal after experiencing such a day as Saturday, starting with bombing the capital city of Caracas, ending with Nicolás Maduro on handcuffs. An image that keeps being present in everyone's mind, at least here on the ground. So I think there's a little bit of confusion because you would expect people, here to wonder and talk about who's next and if Delcy is going to be the president for how long or elections even, right? But that is not the case. And I think the citizens, the people here are in a state of shock. And I think it's going to take a little bit of time to get out of that.
Just briefly, Anna, because what you're describing, it does seem to make sense that the immediate need of people is their livelihood, is their food, their water, their shelter, those basic needs that have to be fulfilled before they can talk about kind of the next element, the next layer politically of things. Would you say then, Anna, that people are in any sense getting the answers that they're looking for when it comes to those questions of basic necessities?
Well, yes and no. I mean, we have not seen lootings or chaos in the streets. We are not seeing people or pharmacies or supermarkets without any products on the shelves. I mean, this is not a scenario like the ones we saw back in 2016 when people couldn't find anything to survive. This is different. The supermarkets are still stuck, but people do wonder if this is going to become a major humanitarian crisis. And if that is the case, then what is next? So people, for example, a woman today, while she was buying some stuff, she said, if another strike happens, then what about the transportation of food from one place to the other in the country? I mean, things are going to get more expensive. It's going to be harder to get food, to get water. So she was basically buying anything she could. And still, she could find stuff.
Okay. Ana, Vanessa Herrero, we're so glad to have you on the ground there in Venezuela. Thank you for your continued reporting under what I know are tough circumstances for you and those around you. Really appreciate your time.
We thank you for watching. And remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.